Welcome. Okay, Karen, let's turn the time over to you to introduce our speakers.
Karen Boothe is here to speak to us, and she was featured in Serve Daily last month. They did a whole, and I'm going, I know that woman. She's phenomenal. And then the article said that. But anyway, she's originally from Australia, and in '73 she moved to BYU, Hawaii, to attend school, and then married Steve in '75, and in '80 moved to Spanish Fork. And then after a while they went to Salem. But we got to know her when we lived in the same neighborhood in Spanish Fork. And she's got more energy than my little finger. I mean, I said that wrong, I inverted it. I only wish. She's 4 of me or more. And she does tons. Right now she's the EMT chief in Salem City and does the training and all sorts of things. She's a hiker, and she's taken on big mountains, and she can tell you which mountains she's climbed, things I could only dream about. And then, but one of her main interests is humanitarian. And besides telling you a little bit more about her family and her work in Salem, she's here to talk to us about humanitarianism, which is right up our alley. So Karen, would you please come on up? And she's married to Steve Boothe, and they have a family, and I'll let her tell you about them.
All right, so yeah, I met my husband at BYU, Hawaii. He's a musician, and I don't have anything in this little finger musically, so. But I do have a love of science. I actually majored in botany at BYU, Hawaii, and when Steve convinced me to marry him, I had 12 credits left and vowed one day I'd go back to school. So I did go back to BYU here, and I changed my major and went into family history. I majored in U.S. Southern research specifically. But my main love is kind of been, over the last few years, has been in the medical field. There was a time when Salem decided that they needed to get an ambulance service going. You know, we were always having you guys come and take care of us. And so we had, in '86, they formed a charter to get an ambulance going, and we had great EMTs from Spanish Fork come and give us our first responder class. I happened to be pregnant with our last child at the time, and I didn't join then, but in '87, he was born in January of '87, and so I went ahead and became a first responder. The following year became an EMT, and the state allowed you at that time to allow some of your members to become an advanced EMT if there was a need, and you didn't have to do the waiting period of a year. So several of us became AEMTs, and that was in '87, and so I've been there ever since. A few years ago, probably about 11 years now, I also started working in the ER at Mountain View as a tech. I don't know why I did it. It just seemed like a fun thing to do. Kept my skills up, and you know, I've just kind of managed to stay in. I thought I'd quit by now, but I'm still here. I was put in as captain. I took over the role in December. And Karen said, you know, you could talk about all those mountains you've climbed and things you've done, but actually my real love kind of is doing humanitarian work. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the trips I've done. One of the first ones I did was, I have a friend who's a NICU nurse at Utah Valley, and she invited me to sign up with LDS Charities, and we went to Ethiopia to teach NRP, neonatal resuscitation, to doctors, nurses, and midwives. Well, in Ethiopia, about 90% of babies are all delivered with a midwife. And so the church actually paid for these midwives to come by bus to Addis Ababa, where we taught neonatal resuscitation. And it just is amazing to see what they do without and still deliver these babies. We do know, you know, most of us have probably had grandparents who delivered their children at home, and it is a natural process. But you see how many things go wrong and how much they do without, and when and the prenatal care that they don't get, and it just was just amazing to me to watch. And the dedication of these midwives to their people, it was just a real eye-opener. From there, on that same trip, we went to China and did the same thing. In China, we got to go into some hospitals, and you know, the family supports these patients in the hospitals. You don't get dinner, you don't get meals. You know, if the family doesn't come to the hospital and provide meals and care for you, other than, you know, the immediate delivery, you're kind of on your own. We also were able to go to a place, I forgot, in Ethiopia, where there was a leper hospital. And the guy that ran it happened to be a man who was shot during one of the takeovers in Ethiopia and was left on a pile of bodies to die, and he happened to survive. And during his recovery, I don't know how long it took him, but he was just this great man, and he took care of this hospital and took care of these patients in this leper hospital. And we got to see a lot of those crocheted bandages that the Relief Society makes here. They're put to good use. So that was really a great experience. So the next trip I kind of went on was, I've always wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, depending where you come from, how you say it. And I was talking to a friend, most of you may know Vicki Stone. I went to her and said, hey, I want to climb Kili, so how do I get in shape? And she said, hey, why don't you come with me? She has a foundation it's called Africa's Life Changing, and specifically the foundation that she set up with a co-founder is they support women and children. They believe if they can help a woman you know, be independent and self-sufficient, that family will be taken care of. Unfortunately, in Africa, once the men got out of the hunting way to support their family, they're struggling with their identity. And so a lot of women have had to step up and kind of fill that role of providing for families. And it's been a great disservice to, you know, to the men. So I went there to Africa, and we did have medical tents kind of set up where we'd get vitamins, you know, so our group is based of just people, nurses, midwives, EMTs, just people who want to come help. And you set up a kind of a tent thing in the village, and there's chickens running around on the floor as you're treating your patients, and you know, it's not very sterile, but and you try to have a translator, you know, say, you know, if you've got a problem, we try to fix it, and then send these people home. They won't get any care other than the care you give them, and you'll give them a month's supply of vitamins, and then as you're riding in your bus away from the village, you'll see the kids just eating a month's worth of vitamins, you know, even though you've had a translator and told them how many they should have a day. So I did that once, the first time, and I went with a bunch of, there was 4 women. We went to climb Mount Kilimanjaro after the trip, and I have the most adventurous spirit in the whole world, but I have the weakest stomach. If there's a bug, guess who gets it? And it was just horrible. I got this bug, and I thought I could climb the mountain. The day we actually summited, I got to 17,000 feet. Kili's like 19,331 or something. And I didn't want to hold the other women back, and they were fine, but I said, no, I'm just going to go back down to base camp. So I went back, and I was mad as heck because I didn't finish it, so I had to redeem myself and go back the following year. So I went back again with Africa's Life Changing, but I did the climb first, so that way I wouldn't get sick, or if I did get sick, it wouldn't matter so much. So I did the climb, I summited, and also did some humanitarian work again, and they're based in Kenya. And so then I came home and was like, so now what do I do? So I started surfing the web. for other places to do humanitarian work, and I came across the U.S. Navy. So there's a group in San Diego, they're the Pre-Dental Society, and they were looking for EMTs, doctors, nurses, different specific professionals and lay people that would, they were accepting them to go on missions. And so I got interested, and I said, yes, I'm interested, and would you send me an application? And so this is what's kind of developed into my love now. I have just finished my 4th trip to Colombia, and they just sent out emails this week. They're going back to South America. So how the U.S. Navy works is there are 2 sister ships. They are a 1,000-bed hospital, 10 operating rooms, one of which is dedicated to trauma. And one is called the Mercy. It's based out of San Diego, and the Comfort, the twin sister Comfort, is based out of Norfolk, Virginia. The Comfort goes to Central and South America, and the Mercy goes to Indonesia, anywhere in Asia. And they alternate. One goes out one year, one goes out the next year. So I applied and got on the ship. The first year I worked in the OR as a tech, so the nurses would come in, and it's really an interesting screening process. So the country, I'll talk about Colombia because that was my last rotation. So you can go any amount of rotations. They're 2 weeks at a time. Some people will go for a month. LDS Charities is often on the ship as well, and so you will have church on the ship. If not, you can go ashore to church. In some places, like in Colombia, there was no church. So we just, and you do work 7 days a week. Sometimes your boss will tell you, so my boss was lieutenant commander, and she would say, you should have a day off. So we try to have a day off once a week, and they usually allow for that. But so when the country knows that you're coming to their country, they, contact the government, the local government, and what happens is that these people are screened, and we set up a camp on shore, and they're triaged. And I was in the triage station in Colombia. So your patient comes to you with a folder, and there's criteria they have to meet, because you realize these patients are coming aboard, we're going to ship them off and unload them as soon as we can, and they will never see a doctor again. So they have to meet criteria, like they can't have, hypertension that's not controlled. They can't. There's all sorts of criteria, and we do a lot of cataract surgeries. We can usually only do one eye, obviously, because you're only there for 2 weeks. But so they come into you in the triage area. You take their vitals. You ask them what their chief complaint is. Why are you here today? And you get their height and weight, and we do take peds patients as well. And then once they go through our section, then they go to another section, and usually we set up in a school. So each room, they'll get a chest X-ray, they'll get labs drawn, and they just go through the process. And then we bring them on the ship. When they actually go through that process and they look like they're a good candidate, they come onto the ship, and we let them come with an escort. If it's a mom or dad, maybe a child. If it's a little peds patient, a parent. And then they come onto the ship, and it is just crazy. When they see the ship, their eyes are like this big. They have never seen anything like it in their life. It never will again. And some of these, honestly, this will be their only chance to get some really good medical help. And so it's just fun. It's just fun to watch them come aboard. Again, when they're on ship again, so on this time in Colombia, after I did the triaging, I came on ship and I worked in the what they call as casualty rec. It's essentially in the emergency room. So they come in there, we screen them one more time, make sure their blood pressure's good, make sure they're not pregnant, blah, blah, blah. We do all of that, and then when that's all good, then they go to the ward where they're going to be, and then, they have surgery. Hopefully they can go home the next day. Sometimes it's a 2 or 3 day wait. And then they go offshore. Colombia would not allow us to park close to shore. They said they felt threatened by our ship, our hospital ship. So we had to helicopter patients back and forth and ourselves back and forth and all of our medical equipment, which means we couldn't treat as many patients as we wanted to. And as you know, or may have heard, that there are thousands and thousands of Venezuelans who have also gone into Colombia because of the situation in their country. So there's this whole complex of things that you're seeing, and I'm not kidding, it just tugs at your heart. And if you bring a patient, on the ship, and for some reason they don't qualify on the ship, you're just heartbroken. You just don't want to send them ashore, but rules are rules. And we had one patient that was he was an older gentleman who needed a cataract surgery, and his blood pressure was a little high. And we're like, wait, he's probably really excited, and he's a little scared because he's on this really big ship. And so we said, okay, just sit down, try to relax, and we'll come and take your blood pressure in like 10 minutes. And finally we got him to qualify. and they just love you. They just, they are so grateful. And it's just truly an amazing experience. So I've been to, I went first to a little country called Timor-Leste. It was a Portuguese colony, eventually received independence, and then fell back into chaos. And so we went there. I went there 1 year. Then the next time I went to the Philippines. And then I also went to Vietnam. And I did not really want to go to Vietnam the year, but the rotation that worked for me, Vietnam was available. And again, every time I worry about things like going to a country where, we've been at war, the people just are like you and me. They just want to raise their families. They want to provide for their children. They want a better life for their children than they've had. And people all over the world are the same. And you just feel that love and concern. I've just had some really amazing experiences doing that. One of them I'll tell you about was in the Philippines. We had a guy who, and I assume that most of you are LDS here. If you're not, I'm sorry, I have a really good LDS story. We had an older gentleman who, probably in his late 40s, who fell and broke his leg, and he had a really bad tib-fib fracture. He had 5 children, and he had to keep some of the children at home every day because he couldn't walk. And so they had to stay at home and stay out of school to help him around the house. Well, 2 LDS missionaries showed up on his door. He wasn't a member, and just said, hey, would you, we know a ship's coming into town. We need to get you, in the process so we can get you to be fixed. And he said, okay. Well, they didn't find him till we were almost ready to go home. Our rotation, our 2-week rotation was about done. And he would honestly not really have qualified because he wasn't going to have surgery and he wasn't going to go home the next day. But bless the Navy, they are just incredible. They got him in, had him surgery, kept him there till we were going home that day. We were literally pulling out of port, and they got this big kind of hammock thing, placed him in it and swung him to shore, and then they got a big van and paid for him to go back home. And sometimes you can say a lot of bad things about our government, but when I see the wonderful things that they do, it's fun to be with people that you don't know, and you're all working to the same goal. So on these ships, both the Comfort and the Mercy, there are designated personnel. It is a Navy ship, and it's made for war, right? If there's something breaks out, they would have to hurry quickly to wherever they needed to be located. So there's dedicated Navy personnel on that ship who in 24 hours would have to respond if the ship got called out. So they get called and they have the option to come and work on the ship. There are also other Navy enlisted who can come and work. But then if the Navy gets desperate and not enough people have signed up, then they start saying, yeah, you're going. And I talked to one of the guys that I work with in the ER, and I said, so how's this working out for you? And he says, it's okay. He said he actually he volunteered and got accepted. But because we were in Colombia, he got pay from being away from his family. He got being away from his family pay. He got away pay for being out of the country, and he got hazard pay for being in Colombia. So he was going home with a nice fat check, which he, was going to be helpful. There's just, it's just, like I said, it's just amazing to see people work together for a common good. And, there are Navy rules and there are civilian rules, but they try to work together. We try to work together. We don't fraternize with the Navy. Like when you go ashore, you can't go ashore with the Navy personnel. You have to go ashore with a buddy. And there's Navy rules, and I really don't like the ship. The quarters are small. Every morning at 4:30, even if you didn't have to muster till 8, the helicopter, the ops would start up, and at 4:30 there'd be reveille, 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 and I'd put earplugs in until I had to get up. And at 10 o'clock at night, lights go out regardless of whether you are a night person or not, and the chaplain would come across the intercom and give a good thought for the day. So, if you have to go, even if it's your day off, you have to go up to the galley in uniform. And I don't know, there's just a lot of rules, lots of rules. And I've just learned to, do them and love the job. And yeah, the experiences far outweigh the inconveniences. And then when I look and see the help you're giving to people, it like I said, they feel like they've won the lottery, literally. It's a one-in-a-lifetime chance for them to, I can't even imagine what they go home to. But I have a sister that lives in Seattle, and she said to me, why do you do this? She said, there's so much need in America. And I said, because in America, you can get help. If you really want it, there's a way to get help. I said, there is no safety net in these countries, and that's why I do it. I just feel like, it's just one little thing I can do. And when I left the ship, I really, this last time, I was with some Venezuelans who came to help on the ship. These are professionals who have fled, thank you, honey, who fled Venezuela and came to the States. These are medical professionals, doctors, nurses, all sorts of things, and they have to come here for 2 years and work back and get their certifications again. But they came, and I happened to come aboard the same time they did, and I got to work with them. As some of them only worked as translators, but they had that medical background, so that really worked. And the day we left, they said to me, hey, you want to come and go to our hotel, because we were all flying out about the same time. I said, sure. So they flew us ashore, and they got me a hotel room. We went to dinner with them, and then the day I left, I went to say goodbye, and Ernesto said, I said, I'm going now. I said, I just wanted to say goodbye. And he goes, no. He says, I'm going with you to the airport. And I go, Ernesto, it's 12 o'clock in the day. It's not late at night. I've done this before. No. He says, I'm going to take you to the airport. So he, I don't speak Spanish. So he got in the taxi with me and took me to the airport. And when we left, I just bawled. I said to Steve, how do you fall in love with people in 2 weeks? But, you sleep, you eat, you work with them day and night, and you just grow to love them. And that's why I do what I do and why I love it so much. Any questions or?
So do you go more than once a year? Or?
No, so you can. The ship So when President Obama went in, the ship did not go out at all. And then when President Trump came in, the ship did not go at all. The only reason why it even went out, the Comfort went out last year, was all of the hurricanes. And one of the things the ship can do, it has a desalinator capabilities, and so it could provide fresh water. And since it was already out, I guess President Trump said, okay, keep going, you know. So we kept going south. And so each country is a 2-week rotation. So you have options. You can go for 4 weeks or 6 weeks. There are some interns, like college students, who will go the whole summer. So you can go and come if you want, but most people prefer, if they're going to do 2 rotations or whatever, they'll just stay for the 2 weeks or 4 weeks.
So for how many years have you done this then?
This will be my fifth year
On the ship?
on the ship. I assume they'll take me again, but
Are you take Steve this time?
you know, you kind of have to have some kind of medical background, or
Sing to the patient.
he could sing. There was one cute, there's a cute story. So I was working with Raquel, who is a doctor, but she's working as a medical assistant in New Jersey. And she worked with me, and she was my translator. And she was great because she knows so much more than me. I'm just an EMT. But one day, all of our patients were gone except for one. And so we're sitting down, waiting for her to get down to the ward. And she looks at me and she goes, "So Karen, what is that thing, you know, where you get a bump on your hand?" And I said, "Oh, Raquel, that's a wart." And she said, "How do you spell that?" Well, first she said, "You know, where are they going?" And I said, "Well, that's a ward." And I said, "You know, pediatric ward, maternity ward, med-surg ward," which she got all that. And she goes, "Oh, great." And then there was that silence. And then she goes, "So what's that thing you call on your hand, you know?" I said, "The bump." And I go, "Oh, that's a wart." And she said, "How do you spell that one?" And I said, W-A-R-T. And I said, "Hey, Raquel, don't worry. You only get that if you kiss a frog." So we had, you know, lots of fun.